It's funny how a single moment can change your entire life. I never expected that a simple act of kindness would turn my world upside down, but that's exactly what happened. It was an ordinary morning at the gas station, the kind of morning where nothing really happens, where the hours drag on and you wonder if you'll make it to your break without losing your mind. The hum of the pumps, the soft shuffle of customers, the endless cycle of cleaning spills and restocking snacks. My manager, as usual, didn't care about anything other than hitting his numbers for the day. It was the same routine, day in and day out, and I had learned to survive on autopilot. I wasn't much different from any other young woman working a dead-end job to make ends meet. I was kind-hearted, willing to help, and just trying to get by. I didn't make much, but I tried to make a difference in the world when I could, even in small ways. Some might say I was naive, others might call me foolish, but I believed in the good of people. At least, I used to. That day, I didn't know it yet, but my life was about to change in a way I could never have anticipated. A man pulled up to the pump, just another customer, or so I thought. He looked a little out of place. Not in a bad way, just different. He was older, wearing worn jeans and a button-up shirt that had clearly seen better days. His car wasn't anything fancy, just an old sedan that had clearly been around for a while. As he got out, I noticed the way his eyes kept glancing down at the gas meter, almost like he wasn't sure how much money he had. He walked into the station and asked for just a few dollars of gas. I could see the hesitation in his eyes, the faint embarrassment as he pulled out a few crumpled bills, and I knew exactly what was going on. I could have ignored it. I could have just processed the sale and moved on. But I didn't. Something about him, something in the way he carried himself, made me want to help. "Don't worry about it," I said, reaching into my own pocket. "I'll cover the rest." He looked at me, surprised. "Are you sure?" "I don't want to take your money." I smiled, hoping to ease his embarrassment. "It's just a few bucks. It's no big deal." He nodded, smiling gratefully, and I felt a warmth spread through me. The kind of warmth you get from doing something kind, something good. I never could have predicted that just minutes after that small act, my life would be turned upside down. My manager watched the whole thing from behind the counter. And when the man left, his gratitude lingering in the air, I couldn't have imagined how quickly my small act of kindness would lead to something much darker. The tension was thick in the room as he walked over to me, his face flushed with anger. "You're fired," he said, his voice cold and unforgiving. I didn't understand at first. Fired? For helping someone? It didn't make sense, but the harshness in his eyes told me it was final. And that was just the beginning. As I stood there, stunned, I had no idea that in just 30 minutes, everything would change, and my life would never be the same. It had been a quiet morning, the kind that dragged on, the minutes ticking by like they had nowhere to go. The soft hum of the fuel pumps, the sound of the occasional car pulling in, it was the usual routine. Nothing out of the ordinary. I had learned to settle into the rhythm of it, knowing that my shift would be the same as the last, and the one before that. I was wiping down the counter when I noticed him pull in. He didn't stand out at first. He was driving an old sedan, the kind of car that had clearly seen better days. The paint was chipped, and the tires were a little bald, but it still ran. I couldn't help but notice how simple his clothes were, just a plain, button-up shirt and jeans. His shoes were well worn, but they weren't falling apart. He seemed like a regular guy, the kind you wouldn't think twice about, but as he got out of the car, I saw something in his eyes. It wasn't just the exhaustion that comes with a long day or the blank look of someone who's just trying to get through the motions. No, there was something else there, something that felt out of place. He hesitated as he walked toward the counter, his shoulders slumped as though the weight of the world was on them. He looked like he was trying to figure something out, like he wasn't sure how he was going to make it work. "Morning," I said, offering him a smile as I greeted him. "How can I help you today?" He cleared his throat, looking a little flustered. I just need a few bucks in gas," he said, his voice low and hesitant. His hands were trembling slightly as he pulled out a few crumpled bills, his fingers fumbling to get the right amount. I could tell he was struggling. His face flushed with embarrassment as he handed me the money, clearly not enough to cover even a quarter of what he needed. The way he avoided eye contact made it clear this wasn't a situation he was proud of. I could see it in the tightness of his jaw, the subtle way he shifted his weight from one foot to the other, as though the world was pressing down on him. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. I didn't have a lot of extra money in my wallet, but I knew I could help him. I knew what it felt like to be just short, to be on the edge of not making it. I didn't even think twice. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the cash, paying for the rest of his gas. "Don't worry about it," I said, trying to ease the tension. "It's just a few extra dollars. I'm happy to help." He looked at me, stunned, like I had just handed him the world. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice full of disbelief. "I don't want to take your money." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. "It's no big deal. I'm just doing what I can." It was a simple act of kindness, and I couldn't imagine how something so small could cause such a ripple. The man seemed almost relieved. "Thank you," he said quietly, his voice thick with gratitude. I watched as he turned to leave, climbing back into his car with a weight lifted from his shoulders. I felt good about what I had done. It was just a little bit of gas, after all. Nothing extraordinary, just a simple act of kindness that had cost me so little, but I had no idea what would happen next. As I turned back to tidy up the counter, I noticed the manager watching me from the doorway to the back office. His arms were crossed, his face red with anger. I felt a shift in the air, a sudden tension that I couldn't quite explain. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and my stomach clenched. Something didn't feel right. He stormed over to me, his face twisted in frustration. "What the hell was that?" he demanded, his voice sharp and cold. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I had no idea what he was talking about. "You can't just give away company money, no matter how small the amount," he snapped. His eyes were dark, filled with irritation. "You're making us lose profits." My chest tightened. I had never seen him this upset before. He was always gruff, always business-focused, but this was different. There was a harshness in his voice, a coldness that made me second-guess myself. Did I really just make a mistake? Was it really so wrong to help someone who was struggling? I didn't think it was a big deal," I said, trying to explain. "He was short, and I just thought it would be nice to help." "It's not your job to play charity," he shot back. "You're here to work, not give away our profits. Don't do it again." His tone was final, and as he turned on his heel and walked away, I was left standing there, stunned and speechless. My stomach churned with discomfort, and I felt the weight of his words press down on me. A knot formed in my chest, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I glanced around the station, my eyes lingering on the spot where the man had stood just moments ago. He had left, but the tension from my manager still hung heavy in the air. I felt a wave of uncertainty wash over me. Was I really in the wrong? I was just trying to do something good, something kind. But in this world, was kindness really enough? Or was it just a fool's mistake? I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. But the discomfort lingered, and I couldn't help but feel like I had just made a choice that would cost me far more than I had expected. It all happened so quickly. 1 minute, I was wiping down the counter, minding my own business after helping the man, and the next, I was standing in the manager's office, my hands trembling, fighting to hold back tears. The door slammed shut behind me with an echo that rattled my nerves. The manager didn't waste any time. He didn't even greet me, just started right in. "You're fired." It was like a punch to the gut. My body froze, my mind couldn't process the words he'd just said. "What? I don't understand." My voice was shaky, but I couldn't help it. I had no idea what was happening. "You're fired," he repeated, his voice harsh and cold. His face was flushed with anger. You broke the rules, and now I have to clean up your mess. His words felt like a slap across the face. You don't get to make decisions here. You can't just give away company money like it's yours. You put this place at risk. I opened my mouth to protest, but the words caught in my throat. I wanted to explain, to make him see that all I had done was help someone in need, but it felt like the more I tried to explain, the angrier he got. You're not here to play the hero, he continued, pacing back and forth in front of me. You're here to work. That's it. And now I have to deal with this mess because of you. His voice grew louder, and I could see the veins popping in his neck as he spoke. I felt my chest tighten, my heart pounding in my ears. It didn't feel real. I tried to hold it together, but the humiliation and confusion were too much. The thought of everything I had worked for, everything I had done just to make ends meet, all being ripped away in an instant, it hit me harder than I expected. You're fired, he said again, this time more final, as if he were giving me no room to argue. Pack your things and go. I wanted to say something, to fight back, but my words were stuck in my throat. I stood there, my mind racing, but my body was frozen, like I was trapped in this surreal moment that I couldn't escape. I had only tried to do something good. I didn't deserve this. None of it made sense. The manager turned his back on me and walked toward the door, not even bothering to look back. Don't come in tomorrow, he said, his voice cold. I'll have your final paycheck sent to you. I stood there, completely stunned, trying to process what had just happened. The hum of the fluorescent lights above seemed louder now, the silence in the room deafening. It was as though I had been hit with a freight train, and the world had just kept moving without me. I barely even registered the movement of my legs as I walked out of the office, my hands numb, my mind a blur. The reality of it all didn't hit me until I was standing in the parking lot, staring at my car. The weight of it crashed down on me then. I had just been fired. Not for stealing, not for something illegal, but for doing something kind. Was I wrong? Was I really the one who had messed up here? I sat on the curb, my hands in my lap, staring at the asphalt, trying to wrap my mind around everything that had happened. It felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me, and I was free-falling into the unknown. I had tried to do something good. I had tried to help someone in need, and this was the result. I couldn't understand it. Was kindness truly so out of place in this world? Was it really so foolish to believe in helping others, even when it cost you something? I thought back to the man I had helped. I hadn't even caught his name. He was just a stranger, and I had done what anyone with a heart would do. I gave him a little extra to make sure he could get by. But now, I was the one who had paid the price. Was it worth it? Was it worth losing my job, my stability, for a simple act of kindness? Tears welled up in my eyes, but I wiped them away quickly, refusing to let myself break down completely. I could feel the sting of regret, but I also felt something else, something I wasn't sure how to process. Was I angry at myself? At the manager? At the world for punishing kindness? I didn't have the answers. All I knew was that everything had changed in an instant. The world I had known, the job, the routine, the security, it was gone. And I was left with nothing but questions. I ran my fingers through my hair, trying to collect myself, but the numbness was taking over. I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know where I was supposed to go from here, but deep down, I knew I wasn't the only one who had made a mistake. The manager, the system, the world that valued profit over humanity, it wasn't just me who had messed up. I wasn't the only one who needed to take a hard look at what was truly important. As I sat there, lost in my thoughts, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something bigger than just losing my job. Something that would change everything. With you. It contains everything you need to know about the position. I hope to see you at the headquarters soon. And with that, he turned and walked back to his car, leaving me standing there, the envelope heavy in my hands, my mind still reeling from the turn of events. I couldn't help but smile, a mixture of disbelief and excitement washing over me. Just 30 minutes ago, I had been fired for doing something kind. And now, because of that same act, my entire life had changed. As the days passed after my encounter with the CEO, my life took a sudden and unexpected turn. The excitement and disbelief were still fresh, but I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that there was more to this story than just a job offer and a surprising twist. I had been fired for an act of kindness, and then, I was offered a chance at a better life because of that very act. It all felt too surreal, but as I settled into my new role at the company's headquarters, something else began to unfold, something I hadn't anticipated. The more I learned about the company and its inner workings, the more I realized that the man who had fired me wasn't the righteous figure I had once thought him to be. I started to hear whispers around the office. People would talk in hushed tones when they thought I wasn't listening. At first, I thought it was just office gossip, the kind of chatter you'd expect in any large organization. But then, the rumors began to make sense. My former manager had been under investigation for months. It turned out that the man who had fired me for doing the right thing was far from an ethical leader. He had been involved in a series of shady dealings and had been trying to cut corners for his own benefit. There had been whispers of him overcharging customers, skimming profits, and making decisions that went against the company's core values. And now, it seemed, the company had been watching him closely. I learned that my act of kindness, which I thought had only been about helping a stranger, had set off a chain reaction that had led to his downfall. The CEO, who had been quietly observing everything, had known about my manager's behavior for some time. And when he had seen the way I treated the situation, choosing kindness over protocol, he saw something in me that he needed to move forward with his own plan. The manager had been the one undermining the company's ethics, and in the end, it was his own greed and disregard for what was right that led to his exposure. The company had been looking for someone to stand up to him, someone who would challenge his authority without even knowing what was at stake. In an unexpected twist of fate, that person had turned out to be me. It was karma, but it was also justice. I sat in my office, reflecting on everything that had happened over the past few weeks. The rollercoaster of emotions, the highs and the lows, had been overwhelming, but as I processed the truth, I felt a strange sense of peace wash over me. The manager's downfall wasn't something I had planned for or expected. But as the pieces came together, I realized that the universe had a way of working things out. I had been fired for doing the right thing. I had lost everything, only to have it all returned to me in a way I couldn't have imagined. And in the end, my kindness had led me to a position of power and influence, while the man who had fired me was left with the consequences of his own actions. The world sometimes feels like a cold and indifferent place, where people make decisions based on money, power, and self-interest. But what I had learned through this experience was that even in a world that often rewards the wrong things, doing the right thing always has a way of coming back to you. It may not be immediate, and it may not look the way you expect it to, but it will find its way back. I thought back to that moment in the gas station, the simple act of paying for a stranger's gas. It seemed so small, so insignificant at the time. But it had turned into something far greater than I could have imagined. I had never expected anything in return. I had simply wanted to help. And in the end, I realized that sometimes, that's all it takes. Kindness, even when it costs you, can change your life in ways you never thought possible. Looking back on my journey, I couldn't help but smile. Everything that had happened, the firing, the offer from the CEO, the discovery of the manager's wrongdoings, felt like a story I would never be able to explain to anyone. But I didn't need to explain it. The lesson was clear: when you choose to be kind, even when the world tells you not to, you open yourself up to a future you can't predict. I had learned the hard way that kindness doesn't always get rewarded right away. But in the end, it always finds its way back to you. The world, I thought, wasn't as cruel as it seemed after all. As I sat back in my new office, a sense of calm washed over me. I had come so far in such a short time. Only a few weeks ago, I was standing behind a gas station counter, questioning whether I had made the right choice in helping a stranger. Now, I was sitting in a position of power, with a whole new perspective on life. It was hard to believe that one simple act of kindness could turn everything upside down, but that's exactly what happened. The journey hadn't been easy. I had been fired, humiliated, and left with nothing, but it was in those moments of hardship that I learned the most about myself and the world around me. I learned that kindness is not always the easy choice, and sometimes it comes with consequences. But I also learned that no good deed, no matter how small, goes unnoticed in the grand scheme of things. Life has a way of returning kindness, even when we don't expect it. Looking back, I realize how much I've grown. The woman I was when I helped that man was someone who doubted her own worth, unsure if her small acts of kindness mattered in a world that often felt indifferent. But now, I knew better. Kindness wasn't just about helping others, it was about staying true to who you are, no matter the consequences. It was about choosing the right path even when the world tells you to take the easier one. It was about being brave enough to do what was right, even when it felt like it might cost you everything. I learned that life isn't always fair. Sometimes, the people who do the wrong things seem to thrive, while those who try to do right face setbacks. But as my story proved, the universe has a way of balancing things out. It might not be immediate, and it might not always be easy, but karma, in the end, always catches up. Now, when I think about that simple moment in the gas station, I smile. I could never have predicted the chain of events that would unfold from that single act of kindness. I could never have imagined the twists and turns my life would take. But what I do know is this: kindness, even when it seems like a small and insignificant act, has the power to change everything. So, my message to you is this: never underestimate the impact of your actions. Whether you're paying for someone's gas or simply showing a little compassion when someone needs it most, those moments matter. And they will always come back to you in ways you can't foresee.